Oh, that music, that score. Oh. His voice.
夢か。父上殺されちゃってたよ。あちこち戦場を渡り歩いてバケモンみたいな大男と戦って、しまいには奴隷と来たね。
My goodness, look at this already. That cut. He put up some fight, didn't he? He's like an ox. Jean and Aaron. Yeah.
半端な罰じゃ済まされねえぞ。
Wow. Let's go. Kobayashi Cinema. Oath. Oof. Okay. Oh, wow. Look at the detail. But yeah, look at... He looks quite unhappy, doesn't he?
たくさん矢が飛んできて、父上なんか。
血の匂いがする。
Ooh, the detail in the hair, though. Look at that.
誰を殺した？
He's got a lot of blood on his hands. Oh my god.
その剣で。
Ugh. Oh god. Young Aner again, eh? The detail though.
O 前を守るために。守るための力だったんだ。すまなかった。トルフィン。
Loving the rim lighting here. Look at this.
お前にはまだ伝えるべきことが、教えなければいけないことがたくさんあったのに。
If there was only more time.
違うんだ。父上。
すまなかった。
俺のしたことなんだ。
お前を一人残して。
父上、待って、父
上。今ならお前にもわかるだろう。お前に敵などいない。
No one's your enemy.
敵などいないんだ。
You're about to get dragged down, my friend.
傷つけて良いものなどどこにもいない。
Oh my god. The voice acting though. Well, I don't know about that, my friend. Oh, wow. I know that goatee. Yarn. Look, look.
まだそんな泥に引っかかってんのか。トロフィーよ。
That voice. It's good to hear that voice. The columns.
よ。ご無沙汰。
Love his sword.
懲りねえやつだな。お前も。また戻ってきやがったのか。
My God.
ここはバルハラなのか。
え？バルハラだ？ここがあの世だってのか。冗談じゃねえぜ。あの世ってのはもっといいところだ。よく見ろ。写しよそのものだろうが。ここはクソどもの吐きだめだ。
Oh.
戦士が最後に行き着くところ。究極の戦争状態だ。勝敗はない。終わりもない。
Eternity.
ここじゃ自分以外は全員敵なのさ。
Wow. Again, the detail.
以外。
Yeah, it's quite the opposite of the other
覚えてる
message.
か、ドルフィン。お前もかつてはこの世界の住人だった。幸か不幸か。お前は一度自分がうつろになった。
Ah.
だからここを抜け出すことができた。
Ah. Goes back to the last episode again.
ここに引き込んだ張本人が言うのもなんだがな。お前は運がいい。戦士でいっぱいだったお前の中の器は一度空っぽになった。今は何が入ってる？
まだ戦士だ。怒りに任せて人を殴った。だからまた戻ってきた。
And that's why he. Oh.
俺はまだここの住人だ。
すげえのが足元に近づいてるぞ。
His screams, man, they really kind of.
おいおい、蹴るのかよ。ひでえな。恨み事の一つも聞いてやるのが筋じゃねえのか。そうだ。よく見ろ。知ってる顔があんだろ。
Yeah.
そいつらみんな、お前が殺した人間だぜ。
どこの誰なのかわからない。いつどこであなたたちを殺したのか。
Oh man.
メソメソしてる暇はねえぞ。またここに落ちたがねえんだろうが。ならそいつらをぶら下げたまま登れ。登れ。
Goosebumps. Chills right now.
それがお前の戦いだ。行け。お前が殺したそいつらを連れて
Never forget them.
本当の戦いを戦え。本当の戦士になれ。トルミエ。
Oh my god. That's right. That's right. Oh. Oh my god. Passed out.
Oh.
Oh, I love him.
だぜ
I love it.
喧嘩まあでも
Uh,
お前がアンニョ
but he has a different.
殴った時は
He's not as proud.
スカッとしたぜ
俺は今までに大勢の人たちをこの手で殺してしまった。お前の家族のような
Oh.
名前を知らない人たちを、何の恨みもない人たちをなのに今日また人を殴った。
Was that your last?
もうこれっきりだ。俺はもう二度と人を傷つけない。もう今日で暴力と決別するんだ。生まれ変わるんだ。生まれ変わって償いをしなくちゃ。あ、本当の戦いを戦うんだ。
Wow.
お咎めなしだって、そんなバカな。だがこれは農場の秩序に関わる問題ですよ。
Look at
今
this.
朝荒らされた畑でパテールが見つけ出した。ところで鳥グベ、いつもの上着はどうした？いや、その畑は野豚に荒らされた。喧嘩などなかった。ありがとうございます、旦那様。しかしお前は強いな、パテール。仕事仲間から孤立することをちっとも恐れんか。鍛えられております。元奴隷ですから。
Yamada.
抜け、当てるぞ。
He's got a newfound
不破の重さで振るんじゃ。
はい。
purpose. Masterpiece. Masterpiece. Incredible. All right, folks. Episode 9. That's special. That is really special. Like I said, that's a masterpiece of an episode. That's one of the best anime episodes I've ever seen. Easily. You know, it's right up there. You know, I say it every now and then, but that's an all-timer. That's an all-timer. Certainly for this series, and then certainly for anime in general. And of course, I can only apply it to anime I've watched so far, but you know, even beyond anime, that's just a really special episode. You know, that is meaningful art. That episode felt so meaningful, right? And I could totally see how, you know, Thorfinn's journey, his path, this turning point, this significant turning point, it can be so meaningful to so many. You know, there is another anime on the channel at the moment, and it's not just any anime. You know, it's the seminal classic that is Evangelion. That is another one that feels so meaningful, so relatable, especially the character of Shinji and his journey, essentially, right? His condition, or the human condition, that's so poignantly on display in the episodes I've watched so far. You know, because a lot of the themes being covered in that anime are really so relatable, you know, a lot of times I find myself just watching those episodes, and, you know, internally I'm thinking about moments in my life that I felt just like that, you know, that I can see, or I can empathize. You get a lot of the same things going on here through the character of Thorfinn, right? the struggles of this character. I mean, at this point in time, there's a lot of really interesting characters that I get to experience on the channel. You know, characters like Shinji, Thorfinn, you know, Jinx, and then of course, you know, Eren Yeager. And, you know, I'm dying to get to it, but I'm not able to get to it just yet. The timing kind of has to be right. So, you know, it doesn't feel like I'm kind of rushing through it. It'll come. And I can assure you that it is going to be comprehensive. But, you know, it might take some time before I can get to it. I mean, I could have recorded the episode already, you know, but it's a matter of how much time do I want to allocate to it. If I recorded the episode, I feel like it would have been a little bit rushed, right? It was around the time, and I mean, it dropped on that Friday, but it was so late, you know, and it ended up being so late in the day that, you know, I kind of decided, okay, maybe I'll record on the Saturday, the next day. But then I knew, you know, if I record now, I don't know, just, you know, long story short, the timing wasn't right. I'll get to it. But I can assure you, once I do get to it, it is going to be comprehensive, and it is going to be my best take on it, essentially, because I only have the one chance. You know, as you know, at this point, the channel is really quite busy. I mean, the channel's in a really good spot at the moment, but that also means that I'm really quite busy. So I only have the one shot at Shingeki, or the Shingeki special. So, you know, I want to make sure I do it right. And I appreciate the patience. I really do. But just know it is going to come at some point. And, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. At this point, I'm not really sure. You know, I know a lot of times people ask for updates, you know, because they're anxious and they want to know, they want to have like a time frame, right? But I think it's better if I'm just being really upfront and honest that at this point in time, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, finishing up on that point, Eren Yeager as well, you know, another fascinating character that I'll get to experience once again in the Shingeki special. But let's get back to this anime, to this really, really special and important episode in this story, and in the story of Thorfinn. I mean, as far as turning points go, this is as crucial as it gets, isn't it? How cathartic, how fulfilling to get to this point. Because, you know, a lot of us have known that sooner or later, he is going to get to this point. Listen, you know, I remember back in my episode 5 discussion, season 1, right? I remember discussing, he'll get there. But before he gets there, there's a long, bumpy path ahead. You know, that path of vengeance that is ultimately futile, as he learns, right, throughout the story, and much more recently as well. You know, they kind of explore that in the last episode as well, or the episode before, that after Askeladd died, he lost his purpose, he felt empty, that he doesn't hate him anymore. But that whole aspect of him getting to this point someday, that was always in the back of my mind. You know, I always used to think about that moment, always. And I used to anticipate that moment so much. And how special it's going to feel once he gets to that point, once he truly understands the lessons of his father and also his other father figure, Askeladd, who is prominently featured in this episode and plays a prominent role in, once again, giving him that final push. Essentially, you know, it's his final message being represented, right, in this construct, this subconscious construct of his, in his dream state, out-of-body experience, spiritual awakening. Call it either one of those. I mean, yes, you know, ultimately, Thorfinn himself is calling it a dream, but, you know, the presentation of it is just spectacular. It is just incredible, isn't it? And, you know, yes, of course, at the end of the day, all of this is in his mind, right? But the fact that all of this is in his mind is the most incredible part as well. Because the internal struggle, the inner dimension, the inner conflict, it is just tremendous, isn't it? Right? The real battle has been going on inside of Thorfinn, right? He's been this shell, this, you know, lifeless husk, but inside there's been this struggle, right, for a long time, and he's had a lot of time to think about a lot of these things, and you see that he does finally understand Askeladd's message, because a lot of the lines of dialogue here are essentially the same things Askeladd is telling him on his deathbed, right? Exact same lines of dialogue, but now it's registering. It registers now, doesn't it? But yeah, ultimately, this episode, this moment, this special moment, this important moment lives up to all of my expectations of that turning point that I was kind of daydreaming about, that I was anticipating throughout the span of the first season and earlier in season 2 as well. My goodness. But before I take a deeper dive into the episode itself, I just wanted to say thank you to Yabuta Sensei. And for those who don't know, Yabuta Sensei is the head director, and he's also worked on Shingeki as well in the past. And, I'm thanking him specifically by name because Yabuta Sensei knows about my content because he followed me on Twitter a few months ago. And I'm not saying, I'm anything special. I'm sure, he's checking out a lot of other content as well, but I can only speak for myself. And, the fact that he took the time to check out my content or came across it at some point and made the choice to follow me on Twitter as well, I think that was a really nice thing. A really nice thing. So, if Yabuta Sensei happens to come across this and comes across this point specifically, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for delivering an incredible episode. And honestly, an incredible season so far, season 2. And of course, beyond Yabuta Sensei, there's a massive team behind this. A team of incredibly talented individuals, right? You've got Yamada. His incredible score is so crucial in this episode as well, right? Elevating so many of these important scenes. You've got Kobayashi Cinema. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's easily one of the best looking anime episodes I've ever seen. Ever. The art direction. Oh my goodness. The backgrounds. Takeda, right? Yosuke Takeda sensei. Beautiful animation on display in this episode. The color design. And of course, the direction. The directing of this episode is just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Everything just came together to deliver one of the best episodes. I think, I think I brought up in the last episode maybe that, this is starting to feel like anime of the year. I mean, this might end up being anime episode of the year. It could be. I mean, it's certainly going to be a contender for one of the best anime episodes of the year, right? No doubt about it, surely. But yeah, just in case Yabuta Sensei happens to come across this, thank you. Thank you once again, and congrats. This is incredible. It is. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate that you take the time to, go out there and just, take in some of this content and, take in opinions and see how people are perceiving this adaptation. And then, of course, let's not forget Yukimura Sensei. Yes, I'm an anime only, but none of this is possible without his incredible manga, right? His incredible story, his incredible message. And listen, at no point do I feel that Yukimura Sensei or his message is feeling preachy, right? I think back in my episode 1 discussion, even then, I had a strong feeling of this story having a strong message, that the story has something to say, right? And all this time later, you see in season 2, episode 9, it has something to say for sure. But yeah, this is it, right? Thorfinn can now truly begin his journey, follow in the footsteps of his father, his late father. And I thought that was a beautiful depiction of that as well, as he's carrying Einar out of there. And then he does see a vision of his father, right? Just on the horizon, standing tall. And I really do believe and think that he can follow in his father's footsteps in many ways, right? He can inspire others, right? He can be a leader. He can empower others, right? He can be that guiding hand, that guiding light or guiding force, much like his father is depicted in his dreamscape, right? Earlier, it's almost this depiction of paradise, isn't it? Before it ends up being this hellscape. It's certainly not Valhalla, is it? I mean, it's a hellscape, isn't it? And it's a place that Thorfinn has been to or has been a part of, or it's been a part of him for a long time as well, right? That darkness within that he was a slave to for a long time. And also, I love how his father's being depicted as this shepherd, right, in this paradise. So really quite symbolic as well, isn't it? And the moment that episode ended, I'm just thinking of any potential encounters or reunions, right? Be it with Leif Erikson, who was essentially one of the first few that was, depicted or showcased as a type of true warrior, right? I mean, it was certainly almost presented in a comedic sense, a story for the children. And I'm speaking of the pilot, the first episode of the show, of the anime. And he's telling them about coming across the natives in Vinland, right? And I think it was something along the lines of, they couldn't communicate, but, somehow they put their differences aside and they were able to kind of come together through other means, diplomatic means, right? And that ultimately they gave them this headgear or headdress that is essentially reserved for true warriors in their culture, right? Something along those lines. So, it goes all the way back to even episode 1 through characters like Leif Erikson, who's certainly not built like Thor's or, formidable like Thor's as far as the physical capacity and skill set goes. But, there's a lot of different approaches. But yeah, I kind of get goosebumps thinking about any potential reunion. Thorfinn and Leif Erikson. For him to see Thorfinn, this Thorfinn, I know that's going to destroy me for sure, because it's going to destroy him. He'll be so emotional, for sure, right? And I certainly hope to see it. But then, also think about any potential reunions with Canute. Canute knows Thorfinn quite a bit. He knows Thorfinn's nature quite a bit, and his struggles quite a bit. But imagine him coming across this Thorfinn, the true Thorfinn, because now you see that his authentic nature is shining through, right? It's coming to the forefront now. He had to climb through, but he made it through, right? And I love that concept of take them. These are the people you killed, or these are the lives you stole, or, had a hand in killing. These are the tormented souls that are essentially, here because of you. But I love how, Askeladd's character, or, again, Thorfinn's construct of Askeladd is telling him to, not forget about these people, to face it, right? And I thought it was such a powerful moment for him to be honest with himself, to not hide behind excuses or anything. And that must have hurt him. And it did hurt him. You see how emotional he is. He's just truly just so apologetic and sorry about this, that he led a life that caused so much pain and suffering. He tells Einar as much later on, doesn't he? I didn't know them. I didn't know their names. I didn't know their backgrounds. But, directly or indirectly, they died because of me. And, that is something that is going to stick with him for a long time, right? That is something he is going to carry for the rest of his life. But the point I was making earlier, him climbing through and taking these souls with him to a better place so they can rest, I just thought it was beautifully depicted in one of the most stunning sequences of this anime or any anime I've ever seen. Him climbing through, his climb, right? Oh my goodness, the voice acting. I should really look up the name of that voice actor. Thorfinn's voice actor. Askeladd's voice actor is phenomenal as well, Einar as well, but Thorfinn in this episode, oh my goodness, his screams, they just feel so authentic, so raw, so jarring, right? Sometimes you'll listen to voice acting and it's just like, yeah, it's happening. It's just, yeah, it's functional. It's happening on screen. But then you hear voice acting that kind of grabs you. It really sinks in, it actually has an impact. Sometimes a physical impact. Like sometimes it'll make you, it'll make you have goosebumps, chills. This is the type of voice acting that was on display here. The whole depiction of his internal struggle, his inner dimension, it was one of the most visceral depictions of that I've ever seen, really. And a lot of times in fantastic storytelling or good storytelling, the turning point that matters most takes place below the surface, right? It's a pattern I've noticed quite a bit over the years. You see that on display in this episode. It really is stunning, isn't it? That a lot of the episode is all internal conflict, the inner dimension. But much like his late father Thor, as us, the audience, is now going to get to see Thorfinn's true character, right? His authentic nature, like I mentioned earlier, through choices. Because ultimately human beings, or, in this specific case, characters, are the choices they make over their lifespan or over the span of their lives, right? It's going to show us his true character through antagonism, through dilemma, because, this approach, it's a big turning point, and it's special for sure, but, it's not about to be smooth sailing either. He's going to get a lot of pushback. There is a lot of tough times ahead. He's going to be tested. His newfound resolve is going to be tested. And it's going to be tested to the breaking point. Because that's the type of era he's a part of. That's the world he lives in, right? It's not going to be easy. It's just not, right? And, sure, from a certain perspective, you can see the inherent flaw of this type of approach, this type of stance, right? The pacifist stance, essentially. For some, it might actually even feel a little bit naive in this world that he's a part of, right? But that's the whole point of this, though, right? To have the resolve to stick to that in this really difficult world they're a part of, cruel world they're a part of. He'll get a lot of pushback, that's for sure, because, not everyone out there is going to be sharing the same moral compass as this newfound Thorfinn, this reborn Thorfinn. So yeah, he'll be tested. He'll be tested quite a bit. And listen, ultimately, I don't think it's just a matter of him saying that he'll never, ever, get physical. Because if you go back to that moment earlier in season 1, Askeladd and his crew attacking Thor's and everyone that's on the longboat, he had to take action. But, the point here is that he wasn't really trying to hurt them, ultimately, right? He did his best not to hurt anyone in his approach. Because ultimately, I do think it might come down to the situation, right? Because if push comes to shove, yes, I can also see Thorfinn taking a similar approach to his late father, right? To protect. Like he mentioned earlier in this episode, Thor's, in his dream, in his out-of-body experience, essentially, that strength was to protect you. That was for you. And one of the most heartbreaking things about this is the fact that at the end of the day, again, this is just Thorfinn's mind. It's his projection. It's his construct. So for him to see a disappointed Thor's, for him to see a guilty Thor's, you see that Thor's is just so disappointed in himself, in this projection of Thorfinn's, that, he left him too soon. He didn't teach him enough, that he shouldn't have left him. That's how Thorfinn feels about this. That's how much he thinks about this. How must my father feel about all of this? The things I've done, the path I've been on. So you see that he's been thinking about this for a long time. It's been in his mind for a long time. But also Thorfinn kind of waking up in that paradise type place, right? The perfect place to be in. You see that it was also a bit of a callback to the first episode of the series. Once again, his own father, Thor's. He was thinking of a place like this to be with family. But then, of course, there's that cut, and it cuts to him on a longboat, in the middle of a battle, a raging battle. It's, it feels exactly the same here. Thorfinn, he's there in that paradise, and then it cuts to him, out cold. And then, he regresses into that hellscape, essentially. But isn't it crazy that in that dream, he felt that, okay, good. This is real. And that was a dream, that my father died. And I ended up going on this futile, path of vengeance, and that I ended up becoming a slave as well. To him, that's the nightmare, right? But unfortunately, that was his life. That has been his life. And that moment Thor's comes up the hill, and you see his eyes, right? Oof. Yeah, it really hits hard, doesn't it? The moment he said, "I smell blood." And the thing is, I mentioned this guilt that he carries at all times. he understands that his actions, they must hurt so much. They must hurt his father so much, perhaps in the afterlife, that his actions don't reflect just on him. They do reflect on his father as well. And you see the visual depiction of this in one of the most poignant frames of the entire episode. It's those bodies pulling Thorfinn down, but also his father, right? So his actions, you see that in his mind, they reflect on Thor's as well, right? So that was one of the most heartbreaking moments of this. But yeah, then speaking of that hellscape, oof, yeah, you really get a sense of how Thorfinn really sees himself. It's essentially a place for monsters, for warriors. And it's also a bit of an insight on Yukimura and his stance on a lot of things, right? That these monsters down below, these warriors, are kind of in this eternal cycle of causing pain and misery, mindless killing, stuck in that cycle of violence for eternity, right? And Thorfinn, Thorfinn certainly thinks, a part of him certainly thinks he belongs there, that he is a monster. He looks at himself as a monster. But one of the more heartbreaking things about this construct of his in his subconscious is that the people he did have a hand in killing, directly or indirectly, the mountain of lost souls, they ended up in there too, even if they're not warriors. Again, it's just a construct in his mind, but it's almost as if he cursed them to this place. But let's focus a bit on Askeladd, the legend himself. I mean, it's certainly a special moment to see him in such capacity again, even if it is a construct of Thorfinn's mind or within his mind. But that specific construct of Askeladd is how he perceives Askeladd, right? That is truly how he perceived Askeladd. So you see that he understood the complexity of the man. And this might have actually happened over the years after he died as well, that he was truly beginning to understand him. But I really found the depiction of Askeladd in that place, in that hellscape, really quite fascinating, right? Much like real life, he's kind of separated from it all because, again, he's an intelligent individual. He understood all of it. He despised it all, right? The futility and the cruelty of it all. Yet he still took a part because of his own hate and resentment that kept him tethered to all of that, right? But he is elevated above most of it. And again, the Roman columns, it's a nice touch for sure. So yeah, you see that Thorfinn certainly understood that aspect of Askeladd and his approach. And, you see that in this construct, Askeladd is not trying to climb out of there. And ultimately it goes back to that point he made in season 1, Askeladd that is. Everyone is a slave to something. He was a slave to something as well, and he knew this. He knew all about it, right? But ultimately he was one of them as well, right? Again, it kind of goes back into the whole self-loathing, self-hatred aspect of it, being a Dane. Recently I made that joke in the last episode. The joke wasn't that he's not a Dane, but the joke being he hated that part of himself so much. And you see that he's not really taking part in a lot of the mindless killing that's going on below them, right? Bjorn's there, and it's not the calm and composed Bjorn. It's the monstrous and berserker Bjorn. Fight your true battle, become a true warrior. But you see that final push, this final push, again, kind of reiterating the message that Askeladd gives him on his deathbed. This time it registers, right? He finally understands. And yeah, as expected, it took time. It just took a lot of time for him to dissect it, to, kind of come at it from a different angle, from a different perspective, after being hollowed out, right? After being emptied out, as Askeladd also reiterates, right? Kind of goes back to the point Gramps, a few episodes ago, right? That's the best place to be if you want to be reborn. Then, there's that one moment he tells him this is the place all the shit ends up in, or all the shit gets dumped. And it's all the warriors. Yukimura's message is loud and clear at that moment as well, isn't it? And then there's that beautiful moment, right? As he is shedding a few tears and Einar is closely watching him at that point and listening to him. Even if he doesn't completely understand it, he can tell that this means quite a bit, that this is a special moment for his friend. And of course, he'll back his friend. He'll be in his side. And it continues to be one of the most special friendships I've seen in anime. already. It just feels so special to me. I just love them together so much. And again, you go all the way back to episode 1. You just the narration and the approach, it just tells you right then and there how much these two mean to each other, how much Thorfinn means to Einar as well, and how much, of course, Einar means to Thorfinn. So much so that you see that a young Einar, and then of course transitioning to an older Einar, is essentially embodying all of the innocent life he's taken. But his new friend, his dear friend, Einar, is a depiction of all of that life. So that right there tells you just how much Einar means to him at this point in time as well. That he is this reoccurring figure in his dreams that he's wronged, or could have wronged easily, because he was that type of person. And the tears I just spoke of, you see that it's really focusing on those tears falling into the puddle. To me, it felt like a depiction of a puddle of tears, the tears of all the people he brought back. But now, it's under a different understanding, that he understands their pain. But yeah, I think that does it for this one, folks. Incredible episode, of course, incredible. And if you enjoyed my take on that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in timer-based full length or full opacity, consider checking out the Patreon page and possibly supporting the channel. If you're interested, the links are in the description and the pinned comments. Also links to social media, Twitter, Instagram, even dropping a follow on Twitter really helps out the channel, helps the growth overall, right? The reach of the channel. So yeah, consider some of these things. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, folks. And thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one, episode 10. Until then, take it easy.